Thank you so much. It's so nice to see many dear friends. Do feel free to turn your cameras on, because I would be very happy to see as many of you as possible. And it's just a great joy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And just, I'll share a little bit about the topic, and then we can have some more informal questions and answers and such later on. So let's just begin with a prayer. This part, you probably have had 3 or 4 prayers already, but we can do another one. It's on the topic of prayer, so let's do it. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yoganandaji, beloved Swamiji, we bow to you all. Divine Mother, fill us with your strength and power. May we feel that power flowing through us in meditation and in activity. When we pray to Thee, when we serve Thee and others, in everything that we do, flow through us. Om, peace, Amen. Again, I see some very dear friends, and I look forward to talking a little bit when we finish. I'll maybe talk for 15 minutes or so on the topic, and then I can maybe talk some about what's happening here in India, and then just maybe take questions and just have more informal sharing with all of you. So this topic is on prayer, and Swamiji talks about, and he says that prayer is a power. And he has often talked about meditation, prayer, needing not just concentration, but the presence of God. And that's what he talks about in this reading. We often hear that prayer is talking to God, meditation is listening to God, and it helps at times to look at them as 2 separate flows or directions, but in the end, they really are one. There's not separation there, and it helps, we go deeper when we can go that way. But let's start, because we have to start somewhere. We start by praying and talking to God in a way that's separate from our own self. I was here we do a lot of webinars, and I see prayer and meditation as talking and listening, and the power of prayer and increasing the power. And I compare it to the upload speed and the download speed. And for many years, all we've ever really worried about is download speed, because we're always just receiving and using the internet and downloading stuff. But now we have to do these webinars, and we have to worry about upload speed. And in a way, prayer, and especially the power, increasing the power of prayer, is essentially increasing the upload speed to God, but it requires us to use concentration. It requires us to do it with willpower, with an inner strength. And when we can increase that flow and that concentration and that energy going towards God, as Master said, God answers restless prayers only a little bit. But when we really increase the flow of that power, it really makes a huge difference in prayer. And it's not that God needs more power and He's so far away that He can't hear us when we're praying unless we increase the upload speed. But we need to do that. We need to do it in order to lift our consciousness and our energy up to a level where we can enter into that flow of divine grace. And the receiving part is receptivity on one level, but it also is attunement and tuning in to divine consciousness. And for that receiving part, also when we are tuning in to divine power, that's when prayer is a power, because Swamiji has said sometimes when we pray, feel that it's God's power praying through us, which is a very unusual concept. But what it means is that when we are feeling divine presence and divine power when we pray, that supercharges the prayers. And it also, at a certain point, it's no longer, God out there, me over here, me talking to God and then listening for an answer. This is why Swamiji said to pray in God, to meditate in God, and not to pray to God. Now, I think probably maybe most of you, maybe even all of you, are Kriya Yogis. And Swamiji has talked about the technique of, no, not all, okay, so I'm not going to reveal anything. I didn't do a sound check. Is my voice okay? Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So, but those who have Kriya Yoga, but any techniques that we use, Swamiji at a Kriya initiation said that the technique of Kriya, it's not mechanical in how it works, and it's not some magic wand that we do this huffing and puffing and all of a sudden we change spiritually. He said really it simply is a tool. And in one initiation he put it this way. He said it does two things. And if we tune into these two things, then we really get a lot out of the results. We get a lot of results from Kriya meditation. Then it becomes much more than a technique. But he says it's a tool that we can use to fan the flames of devotion, of love, of divine energy in our astral spine. And he said when we do Kriya in the right way with divine power and divine energy flowing up and down our spines, then it really fans the flames of that yearning that we have, and the power and the intensity of that yearning, but also the power of the self-offering of ourselves to God. And when we also, then he said the second thing that it does is that it focuses that increased flame and power by bringing it up to the spiritual eye. And so a technique like Kriya, it fans the flames and then it concentrates it. And in a way, at a certain point, I think prayer and meditation don't become different things. They become really the same thing, because when we are praying in God, when we're in God and God is in us, then it's not like we're calling to God way out there. And also when we really do that, then all our prayers are answered. We thought we needed this or that, but when we truly are in God and in the divine presence, then we don't need anything else. And we know that when we're in that presence. But the power of that is so important, and just increasing the energy and power of it. I'm living now, the monastery, we moved our monastery from South India or Central India about a month ago. And we're now living in North India in a city called Chandigarh. And Chandi is an aspect of Divine Mother. And people think of Divine Mother as more as the sweetness and the softness. And Chandi is the power of Divine Mother. It's the Shakti, energy and power. And it's an aspect of Durga. And what's interesting, it's very interesting because it's not like a lot of people here it's not like everyone here is worshiping, they're not Chandi devotees. There are even, many Sikhs live here and they're not even all Hindus. So it's not like Chandi is everywhere, but there is an energy here that you really notice in the people. And in some ways, I think the people here have tuned more into Chandi's consciousness and that aspect of Divine Mother, even if they're not conscious of it. It's almost in the air here. And you'll find that, and Swamiji said something, he talked to one of our people who's from Punjab, which is this area. And Swamiji said, if I ever have to reincarnate, I want to reincarnate in Punjab, in a Punjabi family, because of the energy up there. That's what he said. And this is the Divine Mother. Divine Mother is energy and power. She's the energy and the power of the universe. And so when we practice and pray to Divine Mother, also really spend time every meditation, or for Kriya Yogis, do some Kriyas with feeling this divine Shakti, power, energy of the whole universe flowing up and down our spines. And you will find that power, again, it fans the flames, because if there's one thing that will solve all of your problems. You probably hear this all the time. This will solve all your problems and that will solve all your problems. But for devotees, for yogis, to go to the root of what it is that we need the most, it is an ever increasing and more intense yearning for God, to give ourselves to God. And when we can increase the intensity of that yearning, then everything else follows. And you look at the great saints, Swami Kriyananda, Yogananda, St. Francis of Assisi, they all had that yearning to such a degree of intensity that it took over everything in their lives. Even as a child, I read that Master, whenever he heard the name of Divine Mother, even as a 6-year-old, he would start crying. Tears would come to his eyes because the yearning was so intense. And he was feeling that separation from God. That's how strong it was. And so if we can increase the intensity and the power of that yearning, then everything else follows. Prayer follows, and the really concentrated prayer follows. Because if that yearning is really intense, then it starts to burn up all the distractions and all the restless mind, all the desires. Because restlessness, Swamiji talks about, is sort of what distracts us from going deep, and concentration is required. But he's used this analogy. If you are talking to your beloved lover, your girlfriend or whatever, your boyfriend, and you're whispering all these sweet, beautiful words of love, and then you start looking around, you see someone walk by, who's that person? Then you start talking to them again, and you just keep getting distracted by every little passing thought or scene. Your lover is not going to be all that impressed with you, and they're not going to take your love all that seriously. But if it's really focused and concentrated, they will take you much more seriously. And that comes again from the intensity, because restlessness and distraction and desires, it's of the heart. And when we have deep, uplifted, powerful devotion, offering ourselves to God, it takes that heart energy and it makes the mind one-pointed. We're just thinking of our beloved, of God. And so increasing the power of that energy within in meditation, through practices, through techniques, even the energization exercises for those who have them. This is why Swamiji tells the story of his brother disciple, I think it was Bhaktananda, who was, when he was doing the energization exercises, Swamiji heard him saying, "Pump it in, Divine Mother, pump it in." And this is what he was tuning into, this exact thing, that she is the energy and the power of the universe. And that when we tune into that on the level of devotion and feeling, it really enlivens and empowers what it is that we're trying to achieve with everything else that we do. Then Kriya works more deeply, prayer works more deeply, meditation starts to happen more easily. So what do we pray for once we get to this state of the intensity and the concentration? Swamiji and Master, they sort of disagree with themselves at times, because Master said, don't pray for anything, just pray to be in God. Or he would just say, pray for devotion, pray for that. And at other times he would say, prayer demands, and demand as a child from Divine Mother, but he especially just said, pray for our liberation, pray for our final union back into God. Now, we think that the highest thing to pray for is liberation, moksha, as it's called in India. But Swamiji, very interestingly, said, not quite. And there was a friend of mine here in India. She was at a satsang, and she's an Indian person, and she asked Swamiji at the end of a satsang, which is more important, bhakti or mukti? And bhakti is devotion, mukti is liberation. And Swamiji, he said something that I'm just going to read a different way that he put it. And what he said and what he wrote, he responded simply by almost losing the ability to speak. He just went into such an uplifted state. And his only answer was to sing. And he essentially said, my master, this is what he said. And he began singing this Bengali song of Masters, where she answers that question. It's this Divine Mother singing to the devotee. And this is what Swamiji writes about that song of Master, which you'll recognize. And Swamiji writes, Divine Mother is very conscious of you, and especially of your soul's needs. She will help you, but she will help you more if you ask from her that which she really wants to give. And this song was, O devotee, I can give you salvation, but don't ask my love and devotion. If you ask for those, and if I give them away, I become poor, because then I give myself away. And this is Divine Mother speaking. So ask of me any gift. Ask of me even salvation or moksha, but don't ask me for my love. And Swamiji writes, of course, the meaning is that her love is what you really should ask her for. And Swamiji says, ask for love, ask for God's love, ask for Divine Mother's love. There's nothing else worth praying for, even salvation. It's not important whether you're living in this world or in another world. Be in love with God. There's a beautiful thing that Saint Teresa of Lisieux said, and this again is Swamiji quoting her, I want to go to hell because I want there to be at least one person in hell who loves God. And then Swamiji says, have that longing for devotion. If you pray for anything, pray for devotion. If Master brought anything to us above everything else, it was that love for God. And then he puts it in another way. God always takes care of those who love him. He knows the needs of every one of us, his children, far better than we know them ourselves. The more deeply we love him, the less we feel the need to pray for anything except the power to love him perfectly. And so I have seen that my own most deeply and miraculously answered prayers, in a sense, was really when I wasn't praying for those things. Because, I've gone through some health challenges and some chronic pain conditions in recent years. And Swamiji never prayed for himself, and he didn't advise it. It's not like you're bad if you do pray for yourself, so I'm not trying to say anything like that. But I wouldn't pray for myself. But I found that when I even forgot myself completely and only thought of giving myself and my love to Divine Mother and putting myself at her feet, even when I was in such pain that I couldn't even meditate, that's when this healing happened. And this pain in the moment the pain didn't go away, but the joy came much more to the fore. For those who have ever used the program Photoshop, you can have these two layers. And I can see at least one or two people smiling about that, but you can have two layers, and one layer was intense physical pain, the other one was divine joy. And you can bring to front or send to back with these layers in Photoshop. And so by offering myself completely to Divine Mother, the pain, it was still there, but it was underneath. It was sent to the back, and the joy was brought to the front. And I wasn't asking for that, and I wasn't asking for healing, but I think that was the beginning even of the physical healing of this condition that doctors were saying I was probably going to have for the rest of my life, and probably getting worse over time. So trust in God and trust in Divine Mother. I think that I was given that as a gift, as good karma, because again, we think that when something like that happens, a physical thing, we think of it, oh, that's bad karma, but it was the greatest good karma of my life because it taught me how to completely surrender. And I would not have not just learned that lesson, but taken a much deeper step towards offering myself to God with complete devotional offering and holding nothing back. And it all came because that karma had come to me. So again, live in God, meditate in God, pray in God. This really is the answer to all things. Also praying for others. And I think this is important really right now. And there's a quote that I have that's just my tagline in my emails for the last couple of years. And it's something that Swamiji said, and it was in one of his secrets books, but it was important enough to him that he had it on a poster with one of his photos on the wall of his office in Pune when he lived at the Pune retreat and community. And it's very simply, it says, joy will be yours when you can hold the griefs of others up to God's love for his comfort. Joy will be yours when you can hold the griefs of others up to God's love for his comfort. And this is an interesting quote because God knows that the griefs of others, it's not, God is omniscient. We don't need to point out to God, oh look, my brother or my sister is suffering and they're experiencing deep grief or sorrow. God already knows, so why do we need to do that? And I just think it's that Divine Mother wants her children, and I think her children fulfill our reason for existence when we help each other. When we go to our mother and say, oh, my sister, she's suffering. My brother, he's suffering deeply. Mother, can you please help my brother? She knows, but she's waiting for us to reach out to her and help our brothers and sisters. And when we have that degree of selflessness, even in the midst of our own suffering and pain, when we're calling them our mother and saying, please help my friend and my sister here, we experience joy. Joy will be yours. And divine joy, divine bliss. Because in that moment of self-offering and selflessness, but with love and with going to God, it's not just that Divine Mother is pleased that her child is doing such a good thing and she pats us on the head and gives us divine bliss, but we lift ourselves up into the way that she loves, which is selflessly, unconditionally, without thought of ourselves, only giving to others. And when we do that, we naturally lift ourselves up into her grace, into her presence, into her consciousness, in which there is divine bliss, no matter what the circumstances are. So this is real prayer, I guess. There's all prayer is real, so I'm not going to say there's unreal prayer, but the deepest prayer is what Swamiji has said, which is to be in God, simply that, with complete devotional offering. And when we do pray for devotion, pray for the love of the heart. Ask of me salvation, but not my love and devotion. But she's saying, please do ask for those things, because so few ask, but that's really the value that I have to give. All these other things, everything else has less value than that. And so pray for that if we do, and pray also finally to be an instrument for that. This is what Master said. The one prayer that he most often, I think, repeated and said was his favorite prayer, and the one prayer that he would pray for himself for. It was asking for something for himself very directly, which is, Divine Mother, may thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of my devotion, and may I be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. This is a good prayer to do every day, especially during these times. And I think you will find that the more that we can act in that way, the more joy will be ours. So let's work on that, as I have been trying to do, and I think we can be more of a cause than an effect here in this world that needs so much. So I think that's all I have to say on that topic, and maybe we can have some questions. And
so I'd like to say, gosh, wish anyway, I feel like I could go straight into meditation and not even do the practices anymore, because we've done a lot of them this morning, but just open to receive from all that you said about prayer and the way we can indulge in it. Thank you so much. And I don't want to talk this so anymore. We do know how. Let's try it again, folks. How to, one at a time. If you have a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself in just a moment, say it out loud, or you can put it in the chat box direct to me or Mark and Mayatri. We monitor that and we'll pass it on. But let's do open cameras even more now. You know, he's all the way in India. He was in Dallas many years ago, and gosh, do we remember that visit. I won't say anything about it. He knows, he remembers it. And let's connect and see. Anyone have any questions?
Maybe I'll share a little bit about what's happening here, which is that 2.5 years ago, we have a small group of monks. We have several monks, a few extra monks living throughout India, but we've had a monastery. And we were in Pune for many years. But 2.5 years ago, we really felt we needed a more focused monastery, which was a community of monks living together, serving together, meditating together, and really only serving with other monks together. And Swamiji wrote about that, and he said he wanted it for Ananda when the timing is right, is what he wrote about it. And 2.5 years ago, we felt the timing was right for that. So we moved about halfway between Pune and Mumbai, and we started really serving together and developing these online classes that really have become the biggest thing in India as far as how many people they reach. We've had a couple thousand of students learning meditation, and we get something like maybe 60 new students, paid students every month learning level 1 Hong Sa energization, 60 every month or so. So a couple hundred, or 60 every week. It's about 200, 250 every month of brand new students. We brought a lot of people up to Kriya. We've had a lot of online Kriya initiations. And also just the community cohesive spirit of the monks has really gelled really strongly because of the group sadhana and such, which we had to stop that when COVID came. But originally when we made that move, I always felt the next step was to buy some land and build a long-term permanent monastery. So through various ways and means and guidance, intuition, encouragement, support, we've started looking for land to buy in the area around Chandigarh, which is north of Delhi by about 5.5 hours drive. Land here is about the least expensive in India, and it's about the best farmland in India. And all the land has well water available, and it's just ideal climate. It's the breadbasket of India, essentially. And it's just the perfect environment, and it also allows us to be closer to Delhi, Gurgaon, where Swamiji landed in India, and which is really sort of the headquarters of our work in India. And so there's 7 of us here in Chandigarh. The last moved just about 2 weeks ago. And so we're here looking for land. We've rented a couple of apartments. I'm living in a house that's been given to us to use while we're here until we find land. And we're looking for about 4 or 5 acres of land to buy, to start building, to start gardening and farming, and land outside the city. But also these times that we're in, Swamiji said, gather some friends, a few friends, and buy some land in the country where you can start growing your own food. So that's part of what we're also doing. But we'll continue with our really vibrant online work, which is really amazing how busy it keeps us with these online classes that we're constantly doing. And literally, many hundreds of students that we constantly have. It's like we're the biggest center in India now, even though we're virtual. And we have a lot of Kriya initiations. We've had many online Kriya initiations already because of COVID and during these times. So we'll be able to keep on doing that. And we're looking, and prospects are good for the type of land we're looking for. And it's relatively inexpensive, not cheap, but by India standards, so much land is like, $200,000 per acre is just a normal price for land anywhere within an hour of a city. And up here, it's more like maybe $40,000 to $50,000 an acre. So it's within reason. It's a stretch. We're biting off way more than we can chew, and we're going to try to chew it. But a lot of doors have opened here for us. And so we're kind of praying, is this the right thing? And we take it a step at a time. But every time we do, amazing doors of support, encouragement, people helping us, meeting amazing people, and one of them was just an organic permaculture farm that we came across and have started going and meeting with them and seeing how they've developed their small land into a really just almost a magical place to live. And so we're not going to be farmers with tractors, on big flat bare land. It's going to be more of a natural lifestyle that includes that with trees and a lot of fruit trees. And so that's what we're looking for. We're looking at a lot of properties these days. I'm going out a lot and traveling for that with the other monks. Now with COVID here, it's really everywhere in India. And we're trying to be as careful as we can be. I had to fly to get here about a month ago, and the airlines were really extremely careful. People here on the streets and at shops, sometimes they're careful, sometimes not. But sometimes, there are shops, like a local coffee shop, where they always take your temperature before you walk in. They spray your hands. The people serving are behind a big plexiglass shield. They wear masks. So up here in this area especially, there's actually a lot more awareness and consciousness of it. But, a lot of people walk around not being very aware of it. And so we can't totally withdraw, because we really feel this is an opportunity. Sometimes challenging times are also times of opportunities to really do something as a big next step. So that's what we're looking at doing, and that's what we're working on right now. So I don't know that there's more to share. There's, the people who are here is Jamal, Brahmachari Jamal, Vineet, Premdas. Some of you who were at the 50th anniversary would have met some of these. A young man named Ramesh. Who else is over there? A young guy named Jaidev. And I'm here with Amit Purohit, who's helping us with this land search, and he has been living in Delhi for some years. So very joyful being here. It's very high energy and very busy. We're really serving a lot of people. The monastery kind of I wouldn't say we stumbled into online classes just before online classes totally exploded and became the biggest thing. But we were doing that for a year, about 2 years before COVID hit. And it was just like we just jumped right into something that was really helping us to grow, expand, and serve during this time. So it's been a really very good time for us, as it has been for many people. But it's strong here. I mean, we all know people here who have gotten COVID. Few people who have left the body from it, mostly parents of some of our devotees, at least 3 or 4 that I know of, and many others who have gotten it. So it is everywhere. I feel a little bit, I'm very careful, but also sometime about 2 months ago, they discovered that people who have had dengue fever tend to there's a possibility that there's a strong immunity to COVID because of something with the viruses. And they've really found there's pretty convincing evidence. And I had dengue fever here a couple of years ago among my many hospital visits that I've had in India during my time. And so I'm not overly confident, but I just feel like Divine Mother is wanting us and me to not take risks, but to really to not be totally holding back and hiding out. So that's our lives here. That's how India is going. It's just really lovely to see so many of you here, seeing Maitri and Mark and Eric and Mike and others there who are your longtime friends, Mallory. Pam and Sam, are you there in Dallas, or are you just out-of-state visitors?
We have adopted Dallas as our brothers and sisters. We're still on the central coast of California.
That's what I thought, which is so beautiful. That's one of the loveliest areas. Where are you, Santa Cruz?
We're about halfway between Santa Cruz and Monterey, a little area called Prunedale.
Prunedale, okay, very nice. Okay.
I would love to just thank you again for that beautiful talk. It was I don't know how it is out in Monterey Bay, but it's a sleepy morning here. It's sort of cloudy and a little chilly, and we're just moving slow. We did actually a Kriya through Palo Alto, and Sam and Pam did too last night, which was late for us. That went for us, it went past 10 o'clock, and boy, it hard to keep my energy up. I don't know. It was interesting, and it's interesting too to hear how many Kriyas you guys are doing online. You've probably really perfected it by now. I could tell in our connoisseur of different Kriya initiations. This was the third one this year. Actually, it was the fourth one, but one was in person, the last in-person one. Everybody's doing it a little differently. And, you know, it's interesting to see how that's manifesting. To be frank, I can't wait till they're in person again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, everyone does them differently, which is interesting and I think good. But we have refined it. We've done so many of them. And we'll have I actually did Kriya initiations from my bedroom because I had this big altar and it was the only place. So I've done several when I was in Kandala. We've already done 2 here, and we have 2 more in the next few weeks here from Chandigarh. But typically, we'll have the Kriyacharya in one place. We'll have the tech person on the back end who plays some recordings and files 600 miles away in another city in India. And then we'll have the person demonstrating Mahamudra in a completely different city in India. And it's just somehow it brings everyone together, and they've been very, very inspiring, actually. They've been very uplifting. So
You do it on Zoom?
we do it on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
I
have,
like the Zoom ones myself because you just have more of a little bit more of a connection feeling,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah,
And
like we have here right now.
yeah, yeah. And I also just wanted to say something about, I appreciated you sharing your move and your search and everything, because there just does seem to be a lot of that kind of energy in the Ananda world right now. We've certainly felt it. You know, we, as you probably know, that we don't have our center now, the physical space, and
Yeah.
we're trying to feel just like you described, you know, sort of really tuning into the time and what's trying to happen. And it's challenging. It is. And I think that any words of wisdom you can give on that, we appreciate. We did look at one place last week, which was, I think for the few of us that went, was really inspiring, made us think about that. But I think the big thing I feel is just how we gather the magnetism in these times where we're a little more separated. We can't quite figure out, that aspect of it, because, there is a big financial thing. There has to be commitment and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 2 of our biggest city centers, Mumbai and Pune, both have lost or let go of their centers. And they don't have a physical center right now. And Pune was just about to buy a center. And just when COVID hit, they were a week away from signing the papers. And they would have spent all this money on a place that probably the prices come way down since then, because commercial places here in India, their prices are going down. So it's a challenging time. And I think the answer is just to keep connecting and giving to people and serving people. And I think the idea of giving as much as you can to others, that's what I guess we're all doing here. And there are opportunities here, and we've created opportunities for that. So just like you're doing here, and just still coming together for satsang and healing prayers and all that, that's the best thing that we can be doing, I think.
And I'd like to
Mayatri and Supriya, our friends in Dallas, and even Devarshi in India. Did you see there was an email from Paul Feder? It was about a Facebook presentation that Ananta and Maria will be doing on Tuesday the 10th. That's 7 p.m. Ananda time. How land informs and creates the community that lives on it. A Facebook presentation. We just got the announcement last night. So I wanted to make sure I got to just share that with you folks in Dallas.
So
Yeah, I'd be interested in that too, because we're really all of us here trying to tune into the land, especially, and how important it is to have the right piece of land, because it does affect your consciousness and how you work with it and all that.
But what time was that? Was on this coming Tuesday at what time again?
7, I think, is what he said.
Oh, you're muted. He's muted.
He said 7 our time. So we can maybe figure out or how to get a recording since we have things going on online. Yeah.
I think he said 7 p.m. In California.
Yeah.
So that's different than here. Yeah.
So, Sam, you're muted. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a tendency to mute myself because we keep on talking and everybody else is going, what? It was a 7 p.m. Pacific time. So I don't know if they showed up on your Facebook page in Dallas. If I'll look, if it isn't there, I'll share this whole thing with you. So to make sure.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's great, and that's always lurking ever since we let go of this physical center. I would like to ask a question a little bit more into this moment, meaning I heard you say how many devotees or interested souls you have that come for beginning meditation classes, and we have continued to offer this every month, and yet, wow, how can we magnetize this? We're doing the best we can do. We think we're advertising. We think we're opening to master. But right now, that is not happening to us. Sometimes 0 people. Any comment?
We have the advantage of having 1.2 billion people who are our potential audience for that. So we have a little bit of an advantage over you. And but the main advertising has been Facebook advertising.
Yeah, we do it.
And,
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah, and I think always try to refine the tools and the techniques and how you do that, because we have some people who are really brilliant with that. And the difference between someone who's brilliant and someone who's good can be the difference between getting a lot of people and not getting very many people, because it's very sort of competitive environment with a lot of people, trying to reach out and sway opinions. And you saw with the election and with Facebook, but with meditation it's tricky maybe or different, but that's kind of our main way that we reach people and find new people. And then word of mouth is also happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have the word of mouth because most of us are not out. But I wanted to ask that out loud so that all the devotees online know, we can all pray, just not for people, but for Master to magnetize to us, to our classes. Let's all have that in our consciousness. That would be very, very helpful.
One thing that we do, we have our own Facebook page for our Kriya Yoga Home Study course. And it's incredibly active and dynamic. And just every day there's things going on up there, quotes of Master, quotes of Swamiji. So that's part of it. We just have some high energy, brilliant people who are just really avid. And the other thing that's just, again, is rather an advantage is that Jamal and the monks just have a real magnetism and ability to draw people in and get them to help out and volunteer. So we have like 70 volunteers and staff for our little project. I mean, it was a little project. These guys were started by selling books for the, lessons in meditation. And so it was just a few people, but then when it went online, it just step by step, it kept growing until we're paying salaries of people there. I mean, this is, the joke is that the most successful business in India is being run by monks who are not, quote, of the world. And we're hiring people, we're hiring householders, we're hiring people and paying, decent salaries for people, especially during this time, but also drawing in many dozens and, 50, 60 volunteers at the same time. But it's just, the magnetism is from bringing people together as much as you can and getting people serving and volunteering. And it's really actually a challenge. Right now, we're actually getting too many students to be able to deal with them at times, and which is a good problem to have. And now we've also are doing it in Hindi language. And with the Hindi language, it's just a phone app only. And it's all the lessons going to Kriya is just on an app on the phone, because a lot of the Hindi-speaking people they don't even have a laptop. And Vineet, who was the inspiration behind that, it's so interesting. He had got the inspiration to do this app when he was in America for the 50th. And he got a call on his phone at Ananda Village, and it was from someone in India who was speaking only Hindi, who was asking about learning meditation from Ananda. And he was a farmer, and he just started talking to him and just found out that, yeah, he doesn't have a laptop. The only way he could learn would be on the phone. And so all of the videos and class material would have to be on the phone. And he just got very inspired to do this. And now we also have it in Marathi language. Someone told me that there's a few of these Marathi language ones who, when they're on screen, they're sitting on their tractor because of the reception and everything. And it's just they're out in their field, but they're avid about wanting to learn meditation. So it's really spreading in many, many different languages and different ways over here right now. Swamiji said that the work in India would be the biggest someday ever, or in all of Ananda. And that's really, we're starting to see that, especially with the different languages going out, Hindi, Marathi, pretty soon Bengali and Tamil languages for the south of India. So.
Well, thank you for that, and may we increase our magnetism so that we can draw souls who are ready for this. But I want to maybe just change topic a little bit.
Okay.
For anyone. Questions for Devarshi on what he talked about, so powerful, prayer and the heart and devotion. Let's kind of go into that mode just for a little bit longer. It's very late there for him, so we're going to let him go soon.
I have a question now. Well, if nobody else is jumping in, I will jump in again, but it's not along those lines necessarily. I just was curious, do you have any feelings or thoughts about your stay in India? Is this your home now for now on? Is that what you're feeling?
Yeah. So I've been here 5.5 years, and I was going to go back 6 months ago because I had to renew my visa, but it was just a challenge, and you're required every 5 years to go to the US and get your new 5-year visa. But I was able to get the government to allow me to extend that by a year, which was highly unusual, but it's an unusual situation. But yeah, this is home for me. When I moved here 5.5 years ago, I sold everything I owned, except I have a couple of boxes at Ananda Village, mostly of things that I use when I go there to visit, some warm clothes and things. But I'm also needing warm clothes here now because we're in the north. And it gets pretty cold here. It's in the 50s here right now. And it's going to get colder in the next 2.5 months.
Are you staying in contact with your brother while you're there?
Yeah, we stay in touch. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I have an identical twin brother, and he's a monk in SRF. And yeah, we stay in touch. We're good friends. We're very, very like-minded in remarkable ways, actually. Uncanny ways sometimes.
I was curious, you talked about the energy of the people in Chandigarh. And I wonder if you could kind of talk about that a little bit more. I'm just curious to know what it is about the people that you find so magnetic in that area.
Yeah, it's just in every part of India, it's almost like a different country. It's different languages. There's like 29 or 30 different languages in India, and completely different cultures. So everyone has their strengths and qualities. In the south, it's a much softer, more devotional energy that's exceptionally sweet and good. And Divine Mother is worshipped maybe more in some parts of the south. North is more willpower oriented, I think, maybe less devotional. But the Sikhs are here, and the Sikhs are just very strong people, very high energy, integritous, very serviceful. The Sikh temples are called gurdwaras, and they always have like a soup kitchen or a place where they just feed anyone who comes, gets a free meal. It's just been a tradition of theirs for many years. And what's interesting is that quality of food here, fruit and vegetables, is the highest quality I've seen anywhere in India. They grow a lot up here, but somehow there are people here are into quality. And I mentioned to a friend here, a Punjabi friend, the one who had that conversation with Swamiji, and said that I've only seen such good quality fruits and vegetables in California. And she said that Punjabis who go to the US say that California is like Punjab. So it has a bit of a California there's an organic farmer's market I go to here every Saturday.
Wow.
I've never even know an organic farmer's market even existed in India, honestly, until I came across this. And so there's just that quality is here. And there's bike paths along all the major thoroughfares that are separate from the road, which is, you never see that anywhere in this whole country. I just couldn't believe it when I saw that. So it's just a different approach. And it's closer to where our spiritual lineage had their roots in the north, because this is where the Pandavas, Arjuna, Krishna lived in the north. Kurukshetra is only 1 hour away from here, driving time. And then further south is Gurgaon and Delhi, of course, where the Pandavas lived and Krishna lived. And so this area also, and then we're also close to the Himalayas. And so Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama lives, is only 5.5 hours drive north of here. And we drove 1.5 hours and got up to 6,000 feet elevation. And just so, I don't know, somehow I think monks in India should live near the Himalayas or have that connection to the mountains for some reason, and to Babaji and Krishna and their presence and their, I don't know, their vibration and their history. And I think that's also just part of the reason why we are up here.
The other thing I was curious about, and I'm sorry if anybody else needs to jump in, I'll let them jump in. I don't mean to monopolize your time, but I was curious about you're right now you're looking for some land. You said about 10 acres. And is that just like a starting point? Do you have ideas about a retreat center or is it going to be more monasterial?
It's going to be more monastery. And what we found was that when Swamiji, he wrote a booklet when he was in SRF that basically sort of delineated, described, defined the SRF monastic life. And about 2005, he revealed or shared that he had written this booklet when he was the head monk there in SRF. And he said, someday I would like Ananda to adopt this. And it's more of a hermitage than a retreat. And it's more monks only serving with other monks and not mixing much out there. Yeah, doing satsangs and traveling and doing classes and such, but really having a much more interior life. He called it a hermitage in that writing that he wrote about it. And sadhana together, meals in silence. So that's what it would be more than anything. That said, this area is so ideal that others are interested in possibly finding land up here. And people are watching us and seeing how we do with finding land and how we do with all of this. But there's other maybe couples or a few couples together who might be interested in doing the same thing, not as a large community, but just, as Swamiji said, gather a few friends and buy land in the country. I mean, he didn't say it had to be 100 friends or 200 friends, the way Ananda Village is, and make a big community. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And we would support a Chandigarh center, but I don't see us leading the center here, because I don't think that monks are ideal for leading a center, because you're counseling families and, monks. I've seen monks counseling couples in India, and it didn't work good at all, I have to say. There was just not a real strong connection there, and understanding and empathy towards it. So, but we would support a center, and I think I could see a dynamic center coming up here. And then retreats. I mean, we could have a retreat center or lead retreats a little higher up in the mountains someday. And Swamiji did travel here in Punjab. He wrote about it. Patiala is not far from here. Shimla is just a few hours from here. And just those places Swamiji spoke there and spoke very highly of the energy and the people, the reception he had. This is where he had thousands of people come to these talks. And that the book of Brigu, that Brighu reading that he got was in a small town in Punjab. That's not too far from where we are. So, but we're close enough to NCR that a lot of people in NCR are really curious now about possibly getting land up here because it's so close, 5.5 hours away. And land down there by Delhi is really expensive. I mean, it can be like $1 million an acre for land just outside the city of Delhi, but even outside enough, to be in a village. And being 5.5 hours drive away and having some farmland is just, there's starting to be some interest in that now that we're up here. We'll see how it evolves.
We heard that Narayani and Sergio had purchased or are moving into a new space. Aren't they? They're Delhi, right?
No, they're in Mumbai.
Oh, Mumbai. Okay, yeah.
They're looking for an ashram house, kind of a place to buy.
I heard that they got it because they wrote us and said that they were moving in December to their new spot.
Okay, maybe they're gonna. Well, I haven't heard that they bought a place. Maybe they're renting a place or something because they closed down their center.
Right.
So, well, I hadn't heard that yet, so I'd be curious. I'll try to find out.
That's how the grapevine. That's what the grapevine is saying.
Okay.
And not the grapevine.
Hey, I am Devarshi. I've got a question for you.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, it's good to see you. The work in India, in a sense, was seeded at least by Western, in some sense, and it's grown into just an amazing work. It's kind of like now what America needs is India. It's like for that kind of energy to come our way, especially the kind of heart energy that we need to heal this nation, which I don't want to say it's divided. It's divided at a very personality level, but at a heart level, at a kind of a deeper spiritual level, I know there's more unity if we were to get in touch with it. Do you feel like it's almost like I'd ask you to have your Facebook advertisements come into America and have some Americans at some of your classes and begin some kind of a lovely blending? And I just was wondering your thoughts on such things.
Yeah, I know how that can happen. That's an interesting question because Master wanted East and West and the best of both to come together. For us we'd be stepping into a big thing by advertising our classes in America and competing with, Ananda Village or Ananda Worldwide with their classes in America. But how to have Indian influence in America is an interesting question.
I don't think we would consider it competition. I don't think that people at Ananda Village would either.
Oh,
if it's considered a blending, and I don't want to step on any toes.
We've dealt with a little bit of this. So right now, it would be a little bit of a competition in some ways, but there could be a way of blending that. That's an interesting question. So I'm just trying to wonder how, because
I'm just starting it's kind of like you put out a possibility and then it gathers something. It's like I get the newsletter from Mumbai, from Sergio and Narayani.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet. They have a really neat perspective and they're just little ways that I see the blending going on. That could be, you could call them up and say, hey, could we blend this? Because I feel like the world could use that kind of blending.
It could really use it. I'm going to give some thought to that.
Okay, that's all I want. Thanks.
You tweaked my mind here, and I'm just really curious how that could happen more, because we've seen how beneficial it is for us to come here, Westerners, and now more and more Indians are taking over the work here pretty much. So we're stepping back, and I'm just kind of from a little bit of a distance with Jamal, and then the rest of them are Indians, monks.
But we're willing to obviously to do work here and be open to things.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just wanted to see that little possibility, and I appreciate you taking the time on it.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely give it some thought.
One of the things
time.
we see, yeah, one of the things we see here in Texas, and then we're going to wrap this up for you. So he needs to go to sleep, and we're going to go, we're awake and ready now. But one of the things we see, at least here in Texas, that's all I can speak about, is that there are so many other meditation, types of meditation, groups of meditation. And in my heart, I guess I am, prejudiced in this way, that I see Master's teachings as such an ancient and original way, to practice getting, if you want, that oneness. And yet we have a lot here in the Texas area of other, not competition, but it's just out there. And it's online now everywhere, which is great. And we are online. And as of yet, we are not feeling the attraction or getting or have the magnetism, whatever it is. And I'm just having to say to Master, I trust you, and help us to know what to do, because there's so much out there, and he knows what's out there. So I guess in the time, if it's right for Texas, it'll pick up again. So I'm a little baffled at where to go next, personally.
I did want to say one other thing. Shakti and I, we both live in a place called Capel, Texas. It's like little India. It is an amazing amount of Indian energy. You go down one street called MacArthur and you have 14 Indian restaurants.
No kidding. Wow.
Oh yeah, and beautiful temples. And there's, Plano, Texas here is got just a giant population. I mean, and that's everywhere, I think, in the United States. And it's really beautiful in that way. And we have you may have heard of her, a lady named Kamala Devi Harris. She's our vice president of the United States.
Yeah, I think I've heard of her.
Anyway.
Yeah, she's from South India, from Chennai. And it's been fun watching the pride of the South Indians with her. But yeah, I think you just have to keep putting out as much energy as you can to serve and to give. And yeah, I mean, again, it's the same here. I mean, there's millions of different meditation methods that we're competing with, but again, there's 1.3 billion potential sort of students out there, so that's the advantage that we have over here.
Well, and we have some. The meditation is one aspect of it, but there's just different calling cards. I think that draw people, and we've certainly got some programs that are doing very well, and our satsangs on Sundays and things like that. So, but it's I sort of see like you said, put it out there without attachment, and have that balance of what you can do. I mean, we've been sort of honing down certain things. Well, that's not really what people seem to be drawn to right now. But I think that Master is our greatest calling card. I continue to believe that, and the more we just keep saying, give it to Master, and then say, hey, we are sharing Yogananda's teachings, and Divine Mother brings them to us. So it's pretty amazing.
We want to thank you all for a wonderful service, beautiful satsang, beautiful talk, Devarshi. We have to go. We have our Sunday service about ready to start up here in Monterey, or Monterey Bay. So blessings to you all. Jai Guru, Jai Devarshi. Bye-bye.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming.
And we'll see Sam and Pam every Friday. They are so faithful. They are lead part of our kirtan from their home there in California. And so everybody remember, we have kirtan happening. And basically, there was something else about it's out of my mind, so I guess it wasn't important. Shall we let this wonderful monk go to his bed?
Anybody else wants to stay on for a few minutes afterwards, we can talk about some of the things that have happened this week here in the community. We did go look at that one home, and anyway, if you want to
Okay.
stay on. So,
Let-
but
yeah,
thank you, Devarshi, very much. We really, it was
Okay.
a great blessing.
So good to see all of you, and just some very familiar faces and friends from many, many years. It's very, very sweet. Supriya, I swear you're losing your New Orleans accent a little bit.
Emma?
I know. I hope I didn't just crash your party by saying that.
Absolutely not. Devarshi has been here to Dallas many times, probably most of the time for Kriya initiations with his wife. He was married, for those of you who don't know, to Nayaswami Maria. And they were here a few years ago. But so my accent's changing. I hope more than my accent is changing.
You look really well, Supriya. You really look well and bright. I have to say that.
I am well, thank you.
very
and
very
you
much
as well.
appreciate that.
So sleep well with the masters.
Okay. Om Guru, God bless you all.